All right. Good morning, everyone. I imagine we may still have a few more people join us, or we may have a small group today, which is just fine. For those who don't know me, my name is Megan Cluth. I am the facilitator for this group. I'm with the Center for Public Partnerships and Research out of KU. So it's nice to see some familiar faces and some new ones. So this group we've kind of covered the spectrum from family partnership to family navigation. And I think it's really up to the members of this group to decide what that focus will be moving forward. So I think this morning I can kind of walk through a little history of what the group's talked about, because I know it's been several months, and then pick up where we left off in the spring of kind of trying to decide what work this group may or may not want to work on in the coming months, if that sounds good. So like I said, we've switched a little bit between focus on like family engagement and partnership to more how do families navigate the system? What does access look like? What's that experience look like? I think that's a broad spectrum. So I think it's very open to your interpretation of really what feels like something this group can work on. Some of the things that we've talked about previously are a shared definition of family partnership across the early childhood system. That we opted for that to be passed to the family leadership team, which is a group that's also part of the early childhood governance structure. So that has been passed off to them. I honestly don't know exactly where that is, but I think certainly we can find that out. So that was I think that happened in the spring. And then after that, we kind of shifted a little bit more toward the navigation, and we're able to make some connections with the KCSL team to talk about how can the early childhood system really promote 1-800-CHILDREN, given how wonderful a resource that is for people to be able to promote. So they came over the summer and shared some social media tools to help people in the system be able to highlight that as a resource that we can certainly leverage. So that's more or less, I know that's a super quick rundown of several months of conversations. I'm going to put a link to the Jamboard in the chat, and I will screen share so people can see it. We've used this Jamboard several times, and it's really probably more information than we all need right now. But if you're new to the group, I think it's a helpful, or not, I mean, I know it's been a while, it's kind of a helpful way to see where some of the conversations have been. I'm specifically going to screen share on slide 6 and 7 of this board, which is really where we left off the last time this group met, around kind of where do we want to go next. So that's where I would like to kind of start a conversation today. I'll give you all a couple minutes to be able to read some of this. I know it's a little hard without having full context, but just wanted to get people kind of reoriented to some of the ideas that we've talked about, and see, as well as add. If you haven't used Jamboard before, if you would like to add anything, feel free to come off mute and say it, or also feel free to, you can just click onto the sticky note, write your idea, and then move it on the board. So I'm going to stop talking with that unless there are any questions. Give people a couple minutes to kind of take a look at this and just see if anything stands out as a place to start our conversation. We don't have a ton of time today. We have until 10:20, so we've got about 15 minutes, but I think this should be a good place for us to determine what comes next for this group.
Megan, just a note, Caitlin Moore is no longer with KCSL, so that contact information is incorrect.
Thank you. Is there somebody else that we should note?
You can put Stephanie Boone on there for now. We're in the process of hiring.
Stephanie.
And it's just S. Boone.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey Megan, this is Deanna Schatz. Sorry, I was late. I was in the wrong room. But I wanted to let you know, and I don't know if this would make a difference for us, but I'm also on the Family Advisory Council, and we're working kind of on the same thing. And we've decided to try to adopt the Help Me Grow. It's not really a program, but kind of the idea of that. And I think that's what we're going to run with. And so I don't know if we want to maybe consider focusing on that. I mean, we are kind of working on the same thing, just where can we meet families when they come into the system, and how can we direct them into the resources we need. And so I think Help Me Grow is the one we're going to kind of run with.
That's great. I appreciate you sharing that connection. And yeah, I mean, I think Help Me Grow is a huge approach. Yeah, I'm not sure what the right noun is, but it's not quite a program. So yeah, I think that it's really, we want to make sure that we're being aware of what other people are working on, but certainly, there are some things that are bigger than one group could possibly tackle. So how can we complement? So is there anything that, I mean, this list, I think, is a starting point for what this group would want to work on. I think the goal for today is to identify, is there work that this group would want to do over the next few months, which, if so, that may or may not be on this board. So I'm wondering, is there, other than Help Me Grow, is there anything that's standing out from this list? And if not, is there anything we want to add that this group might be able to focus on?
Sorry, Megan, it's Dan again.
No,
One
no,
thing
no.
I did want to say is, at our last Family Advisory Council, we actually met in person for the first time in 3 years, which was nice. But one of the members brought forward the idea of us using some common language. She works with families who are involved in the child welfare system, DCF, St. Francis, that kind of stuff. She did share with us that, and it does make sense, I would say this was with our families too, that there are certain terms that we use that could be, that could really turn a family off to offering resources. And one of those words is like referral, because once we say, hey, we're going to make a referral to the doctor's office, the word they hear, referral, means you're sending me to DCF, or you're taking my kids away. So I'm trying to think of some of the other words that we talked about, but referral is one of those big ones that maybe we should get out of our vocabulary and start using another word. I don't know what word, but yeah, it just really scares them when we say referral.
Thanks, Dan. I think that's a really good perspective. Any other thoughts? This can be, I mean, it could be something you're seeing in your work related to how families experience either navigating the system, being engaged with the system. It could be something that feels like, I'd like to know more about that. It could be something that you want this group to work on. I mean, I think this is really the time to kind of put any ideas about what you're seeing related to the family experience.
Me again. I do I am interested in learning more about the centers that DCF is trying to put together. I call them hubs. But I'd like to learn more about that, and yeah, the family resource centers. And I hope that when they do put those things together and they're marketing towards them, I hate to say this, but I hope that they hide the fact that it is DCF. I hope that they call them something else, because I'm afraid, again, if families see this, oh, that's DCF, we won't go. We have families that we tell them, look, they're here to help you. We can get you some resources with rent. We can help you with childcare. No, I don't want to do that because they're going to take my kids away. And no matter how hard we talk and how much we reassure them, no, they're not going to do that. They're there to keep your family together. They still will not use them as a resource. So I'm hoping that when they market that, they market it in a way that it's going to be inviting for families.
I think that could absolutely be something that we could ask them to come present, and then just have that conversation about, what are you think, how can we think about this from the family perspective, and I think language is critical. So I think that's a great idea. It's absolutely something very relevant within the system right now.
I apologize. I'm in Topeka and had some rental car issues yesterday, and was trying to let the rental car company know that there's a huge difference between a tank being full and a tank being on an eighth. And fortunately, I noticed that before I actually got on the highway, because that would have been ugly. But so.
Any other thoughts?
I think in regards to family resource centers, and I missed part of that, but if you've taken the National Family Standards training, you know that resource centers really are supposed to be family focused and parent friendly. And so hopefully, as those grants come out from DCF, whenever they are coming out, or those awards, those people will have taken the standards or be enrolled in the standards, and then we'll be able to wrap some additional layers of support for staff to understand, kind of what the standards are and how they should be done. And then they'll be able to wrap them around families as well.
So maybe a conversation about like how to use the family resource centers and that money, like just really thinking about how to make sure that that's a successful implementation.
Right. I think that there is a requirement to take this standards training.
Yes.
And so I think that the conversation, it's not just one of those things where you just take a training and voila, everyone is, on the same page. But it's a continued conversation of how are we able to support our families, and what kind of connections are we able to make. It's like a support group for family resource center staff, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, actually, I think that's a good overview. All right, would somebody add family resources being more multicultural? I think that's a great one. I'm also thinking about, like, from the access perspective, like, are there ways to get information out or better understand barriers for people, like learning about subsidy and what's available to them, or other resources? Like, I remember this group had a long conversation about just, I think we recognize it's just hard for families, and like where are there places for us to be able to make sure that the information is available. I think to your point, Dana, that like the language isn't off-putting unintentionally, or make people feel like, oh, that's not for me, and that may not be accurate. I mean, I think there's a lot of room for where this group could help have conversations around those things. We do have about 2 minutes left. So I just want to note the time. I'm happy to we're going to do a little report out. I'm happy to do that. And I also want to open the floor if anybody else would like to. No, okay. Just wanted to ask in case anybody felt motivated, but I can certainly do it this time.
The whole thing about language is really important. I'm in Topeka for our board retreat, and we had a testimonial last night from a young woman who was part of our parent-child assistance program, or is part of it. And she said she was really hesitant at first because whoever was trying to refer her to it kept saying, well, they'll just come in and evaluate your baby. And that like scared her. And it wasn't evaluate, it was, the ages and stages questionnaire, which she said, once I learned what those are, I love doing those. I love seeing where she is and those milestones that she's tracking. And so I think it's really important to help our families understand that, these are good things, and not like, yeah, who wants to be evaluated? That sounds scary, even to me.
Absolutely. I think we can probably all relate to that, like kind of disconnect of, either it feels scary or it just feels like that's not accessible. So I think there's a lot of work that can be done around that.
So it's probably helping the people that make the referrals to have a better understanding of the programs that they're referring to.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that somebody put being more clear that these resources are for everyone in all families. I think the feeling of like, oh, there's somebody else that should get that is very relatable.
Yeah, and Megan, I didn't know if we could include like testimonies or something. I don't know. I was trying to figure out how to explain it to you. Like, I'll use myself as an example. So when I had our first child, my spouse was going through their student teaching. And so we were a one income family. And personally, I didn't even think about resources that we could use because obviously that's very stressful time. There's a lot of things happening, new baby, until somebody in the community reached out and said, hey, have you tried to see if you guys qualify for WIC because you are technically a one income household, for that semester. Personally, I would have never have thought about that because, I was a teacher myself, a professional. Like, does that make sense? That example of even like, I don't know, trying to be like sensitive wording, you know what I mean? Like, it's for everybody. And
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just like talking to my own families when I taught preschool just about that. Like, I used it myself. They're literally here to help you and give you resources. And it was something that we needed for that period of time. And as soon as, that was over and my spouse got a job, we were good to go. We thank them for having that service available to us during a very critical time of our life.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. And like, I mean, people's situations change, like people lose jobs. And I think the idea that like, I think there's the common like, oh, there's somebody else who deserves this more, or like is worse off. And also like that I just feel bad taking it. Like, I think just making sure that like people know it's an option and that they have the best information to make the right decision for their family. So. Well, this feels like a really good start. I think we may have an interesting conversation about language next time. We are due back in the main group, so I will share a little bit of this and then we'll see you next time. Thanks for the discussion.
Do I exit this and then find the